Welcome to our deep dive into the world of habits.
Oh, yes.
We're going to be drawing on Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit,
Mm,
to uncover how these automatic behaviors really kind of run the show more than we might think.
that's right. I mean, we like to think that we're in control, making decisions all the time.
Right.
But research from Duke University actually suggests that almost half of our daily actions are driven by habits, not by active decision making.
Wow, half.
Yeah.
So that's like saying everything we're doing right now is pre-programmed.
Well, not everything, but,
Okay.
close to half.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
think about, getting ready in the morning or driving to work.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of those actions are probably so ingrained that you don't even think about them.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if I had to think about every single step of like brushing my teeth or getting dressed, it would take me forever.
Exactly. It would be exhausting.
Yeah,
So our brains have evolved to automate these routine actions. It's all about efficiency.
that makes sense. So how does this autopilot system actually work? How do we program these habits in the first place?
Well, Duhigg describes a really interesting three-step process. He calls the habit loop.
Okay.
And it starts with a cue. This is a trigger in your environment that signals the start of a routine.
A cue.
Yeah, so let's say you're brushing your teeth.
Right.
The cue might be seeing your toothbrush or
Yeah.
smelling that minty toothpaste.
Oh, so it's like an associate. I see the toothbrush. I know what to do next.
Exactly. The cue triggers the routine, which is the behavior itself, the actual brushing in this case.
Okay.
And then the final step is the reward, the positive outcome that reinforces the habit and makes you want to repeat it.
So in this case, the reward would be like that clean, fresh feeling you get after brushing.
Exactly. And each time you repeat this loop cue routine reward, the connection becomes stronger, the habit becomes more automatic.
It's like building a pathway in your brain. The more you travel down that path, the more defined it becomes.
Exactly. It becomes a super highway of activity. There's another piece to this puzzle that I think is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's the role of cravings.
Cravings.
Yes, Wolfram Schultz, a neuroscientist, did this really cool study with monkeys where he trained them to press a lever to get a sip of this delicious blackberry juice.
Blackberry juice. I'm getting thirsty just thinking about it.
Right, so what Schultz found was that over time, the monkey's brain started to anticipate the reward.
Oh, wow.
They'd get a surge of activity in the reward centers of their brains even before they received the juice.
So they were craving it.
Exactly. They were craving that sweet reward, and that craving is what really drives the habit loop.
So it's not just about going through the motions. It's about wanting to repeat the behavior because we're chasing that good feeling.
Exactly. That's why breaking bad habits can be so hard. Those cravings can be really powerful.
Yeah, it's like trying to resist that urge to grab a cookie when you know you should be eating something healthier.
Exactly. But cravings aren't always a bad thing.
Oh, that's true.
They can also play a role in reinforcing good habits. Think about the feeling of accomplishment you get after a good workout, or the satisfaction of checking something off your to-do list. Those are cravings, too, driving you to repeat those positive behaviors.
So we can actually use cravings to our advantage.
Exactly, and companies have figured this out, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, think about Pepsodent.
No.
They weren't just selling toothpaste, they were selling that tingling sensation, the feeling of freshness that people started to crave.
So they engineered a craving into their product?
Exactly, they made it a part of the habit loop. Brilliant marketing.
Okay, so we've got these habits running on autopilot, fueled by cravings. But what about when we want to change course? How do we break those bad habits or cultivate good ones?
Well, Duhigg has some great insights on this.
Okay.
One of the most important is don't try to resist the craving head on, instead try to redirect it.
Redirect it.
Yes, so keep the cue and the reward, but change the routine.
So if my bad habit is stress eating, I wouldn't try to just white knuckle it and avoid all snacks.
Right, that's often a recipe for failure.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Instead, you would identify the cue, let's say it's feeling overwhelmed at work, and then try to come up with a new, healthier routine that provides a similar reward.
Okay, so instead of reaching for a bag of chips, I could try taking a quick walk or listening to a calming song, something that also helps relieve stress.
Exactly. You're essentially rewiring your brain, giving it a new path to follow.
So it's like hacking the habit loop.
Exactly. And this redirect, don't resist approach is actually a key principle in programs like Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh, right. They encourage people to find healthier substitutes for drinking things that satisfy those same underlying needs for connection and stress relief.
Exactly. It's about finding new routines that address the root cause of the habit.
That makes sense. But changing deeply ingrained habits takes more than just finding the right routine, doesn't it? It takes a certain mindset.
You're absolutely right. Duhigg emphasizes that belief is crucial for lasting change.
Belief.
Yes, people who believe they can change are far more likely to succeed, especially when facing challenges or setbacks.
So it's not just about willpower. It's about having that inner confidence that you can actually make the change.
Exactly. And that leads us to the fascinating concept of keystone habits.
Keystone habits, what are those?
These are habits that have a ripple effect. They spark positive changes in other areas of our lives.
Okay, so it's like a domino effect.
Yeah,
One positive habit leads to another.
exactly. Duhigg shares this great story about Paul O'Neill, the former CEO of Alcoa.
Okay.
When he took over, the company was struggling, but instead of focusing on profits right away, he made worker safety his top priority.
Worker safety, that seems like an unusual place to start for a struggling company.
It might seem counterintuitive, but this seemingly simple focus had a cascade of positive effects. It forced everyone to think about how they were working, how processes were designed, how communication flowed within the organization.
So by prioritizing worker safety, O'Neill inadvertently created a culture of attention to detail and continuous improvement.
Exactly, and this new culture led to increased efficiency and ultimately much higher profitability.
Wow, so it's not about trying to change everything at once. It's about finding that one key habit that can unlock a chain reaction of positive changes.
Exactly. It's about identifying those leverage points, those keystone habits that can create real momentum for transformation.
That's powerful. And speaking of powerful habits, one of the most important ones, according to Duhigg, is willpower.
Willpower, that elusive quality we all wish we had more of.
Right. But is it something we're born with? Or can we actually develop and strengthen our willpower?
Well, that's the exciting part. Willpower is like a muscle that can be trained.
Really?
Yeah, just like we can build physical strength through exercise, we can train our minds to resist temptations and stay focused on our goals.
So it's not about being born with some magical ability. It's about putting in the work to develop that mental discipline.
Exactly, and we'll delve into that more in our next session. We'll explore fascinating research like the Stanford marshmallow experiment and discuss specific strategies for boosting your willpower muscle.
I'm already feeling more empowered just thinking about it.
Mm.
This deep dive is really changing the way I think about my own habits and the choices I make every day.
That's fantastic. I think that's the first step to real change, becoming aware of the power of habits and how they shape our lives.
I can't wait to dive even deeper in our next session. This is just the beginning.
I agree. There's so much more to explore.
Welcome back to our deep dive.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but after that last session, I started noticing habit loops everywhere, like when I reach for my phone first thing in the morning.
Oh, yeah, that's common. Once you start looking for them, you see them everywhere.
It's true. So, okay, we've learned how habits work, but how do we actually change them? Especially those pesky bad habits.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Right.
Well, remember the golden rule we talked about, redirect, don't resist?
Right.
So instead of trying to suppress the craving, try substituting the routine with a behavior that satisfies the same underlying need.
Okay. Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say your bad habit is mindlessly scrolling through social media when you're bored.
Oh, yeah, big time.
So the cue might be feeling restless. The routine is opening that Instagram app.
Yeah.
And the reward is a temporary distraction, a little dopamine hit.
Okay, but how do I actually stop doing that?
Well, instead of just trying to not pick up your phone,
Yeah.
try replacing the scrolling with a more fulfilling activity, something that also provides a sense of engagement or stimulation.
Okay, so like reading a book or going for a walk.
Exactly. Or maybe spend a few minutes learning a new language on Duolingo or something.
Oh, I like that. Make it productive.
Right. And this redirection strategy, it can be applied to so many different habits.
So if stress eating is my go-to, I wouldn't just try to avoid all food when I'm stressed.
Right. That's setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Instead, you'd think, okay, what's the cue? Maybe it's a deadline at work, and then come up with a new routine that provides a similar reward, like maybe going for a quick run or calling a friend event.
So it's all about finding healthier substitutes that address the underlying need.
Exactly. And another important tip is to remove any barriers that make it difficult to stick with the new routine.
Oh, like if I'm trying to make exercise a regular habit, I should probably lay out my workout clothes the night before.
That way you're not scrambling in the morning.
Right.
Or if you're trying to eat healthier, make sure you have plenty of healthy snacks readily available, like chopped veggies, fruit nuts.
So you're less tempted to reach for the junk food.
Precisely, make it easy to make the healthy choice.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
What about building good habits? Any tips for making those stick?
Well, one of the most effective strategies is to start small. Ridiculously small, even.
Really?
Yeah, we often try to do too much too soon, and then we get discouraged and give up.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely guilty of that.
So instead of aiming to go to the gym 5 days a week, maybe start with just 2.
Okay.
Or if you want to start meditating, start with just 5 minutes a day.
Baby steps.
Exactly. The key is to build consistency, gradually make the new habit part of your daily routine.
So it's like those small wins. They build momentum and make you feel good about the progress you're making.
Exactly. Success breeds success. And speaking of success, Duhigg highlights some really cool organizations that are using the science of habits to make a positive impact.
Oh, I'd love to hear about that.
One example is Hope Lab. They've developed video games to help kids with chronic illnesses manage their conditions.
Wait, video games? That sounds amazing.
It is. These games, they're designed to be engaging and fun, but they also subtly encourage healthy habits, like taking medication regularly or sticking to a treatment plan.
So it's like sneaking in the good stuff while they're having fun.
Exactly. It's a brilliant example of gamification and positive reinforcement in action.
That's really cool. And it reminds me of our discussion about Alcoholics Anonymous and how they focus on redirecting cravings and building a supportive community.
Yeah, AA is a great example of how habits can be social and cultural. They're not just individual.
Right, our habits are shaped by the people around us.
Exactly. So we need to think about how we can design our environments to support healthy habits.
What do you mean?
Well, what if every office had a designated space for mindful breaks, or offered healthy food options in the cafeteria?
Oh, I love that idea.
Or what if schools encouraged more physical activity throughout the day and taught kids about the science of habits from a young age?
Yeah, it's about making the healthy choice, the easy choice, the default choice.
Exactly, creating a culture of well-being where healthy habits become the norm.
Now that's a world I want to live in.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we've talked a lot about the impact of habits on our individual lives, but what about our overall health?
That's a great point. Our health is largely determined by our habits, from what we eat to how much we sleep to whether we make time for exercise.
It's like our daily routines are either setting us up for success or slowly sabotaging our health.
It's true. It's estimated that about 40% of premature deaths are linked to behavioral factors, many of which are habit-driven.
Wow, that's a sobering statistic. It really highlights the importance of taking control of our health habits.
It does. Think about something as simple as your breakfast routine. Do you grab a quick bowl of sugary cereal or make time for a balanced meal with protein, fiber, healthy fats?
Or how about snacking? Do you reach for fruits and vegetables or go for those processed snacks loaded with sugar?
These seemingly small, everyday choices, they can have a huge impact on our weight, our energy levels, our mood, our risk of chronic diseases.
And it's not just about what we eat. Our activity levels are also largely determined by our habits.
Exactly. Do you make time for regular exercise, even if it's just a brisk walk a few times a week?
Or do you spend most of your day sitting at a desk?
Our modern lifestyle often defaults to a sedentary routine, and that can have detrimental effects on our health.
Yeah, we're just not moving our bodies enough.
Right, and then there's sleep.
Oh, sleep the holy grail.
So many of us have terrible sleep habits. We stay up late scrolling through our phones. We drink caffeine too close to bedtime.
It's like we're actively sabotaging our sleep.
And chronic sleep deprivation, it's been linked to so many problems: impaired cognitive function, weakened immunity, increased risk of accidents, mood disorders.
Okay, so how do we break these bad health habits? It can feel overwhelming knowing where to start.
You're right. But remember, start small, focus on one habit at a time. The first step is awareness. Pay attention to your current habits and identify areas where you want to make changes.
So if I want to improve my sleep, I should start by tracking my current sleep patterns.
Exactly. What time do you usually go to bed? How many hours of sleep do you actually get? Are there any habits that might be interfering with your sleep?
Like late night screen time or that extra cup of coffee.
Right. Once you have a clear understanding of your current habits, you can start to formulate a plan for change. Remember the cue routine reward framework.
Right.
Identify cues that trigger the unhealthy habit, the routine itself, and the reward you're seeking.
So if late night snacking is my downfall, I need to figure out what's triggering those cravings.
Exactly. Is it boredom stress, a particular TV show you always watch with a bowl of ice cream?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Once you've identified the cues, you can start to experiment with different strategies for disrupting the routine. Maybe you replace the ice cream with a cup of herbal tea, or find a new activity to do during your favorite show.
It's like becoming a detective of your own habits.
Exactly. And don't forget the importance of setting yourself up for success. Make it easy to make healthy choices.
Right, like if I want to eat more fruits and vegetables, I should keep a bowl of pre-cut fruit on the counter.
Exactly, or stock your fridge with ready-to-eat salads.
It's amazing how much of a difference those little tweaks to our environment can make.
It's true. And remember, be patient with yourself. Building new habits and breaking old ones takes time and effort.
There will be slip-ups along the way.
Oh, absolutely. But that's normal.
Mm.
The key is to not get discouraged and to get back on track as soon as possible.
It's like learning any new skill. It takes practice, persistence, and a willingness to learn from our mistakes.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. There's so many resources available to support you on this journey. Books, articles, support groups, apps, online communities.
Yeah, it's great to have that support system. This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on the power of habits.
Me too. It's fascinating how these seemingly small automatic behaviors can have such a profound impact on our lives.
And speaking of impact, we haven't even touched on the role of habits in shaping social movements and cultural norms.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other fascinating layer to this conversation.
I can't wait to dive into that in our next session. We've covered so much ground already, from the science of how habits work to practical strategies for change to the impact of habits on our health.
We've only just scratched the surface in our final segment. We'll explore how companies leverage our habits for profit, delve into the role of habits in social movements, and leave you with some thought-provoking questions to ponder as you continue your own journey of habit exploration.
This deep dive just keeps getting better and better. I'm really excited for this last part.
Me too. It's going to be mind-blowing.
Welcome back to the deep dive. It's amazing how much our conversation about habits has stuck with me. I've been reorganizing my whole kitchen, trying to make healthy choices easier, putting the fruits and veggies front and center.
I love that. You're creating a supportive environment for those healthy habits. But as you were rearranging your pantry, did you ever stop to think about how all those tempting treats ended up there in the first place?
Now that you mention it, I did. I was like, how did I end up with 3 different kinds of chips and 2 boxes of cookies? It's like the grocery store is designed to make me overspend.
You're not wrong. Companies invest a lot of time and money into understanding our habits, especially our buying habits.
Right.
And they use that knowledge to kind of nudge us towards spending more often without us even realizing it.
It's sneaky.
It is. Duhigg gives this great example in the book about supermarkets
Okay.
and how they strategically place certain items like candy and magazines near the checkout lines.
Oh, yeah. I'm totally guilty of grabbing a chocolate bar while I'm waiting to pay.
Exactly. They're tapping into that moment of impatience or boredom, creating a cue routine reward loop that leads to impulse purchases.
The cue is the long line, the routine is grabbing the candy, and the reward is that little sugar rush.
Exactly. And it's not just supermarkets. Online retailers are masters at this too.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Every time I browse for something online, I'm suddenly seeing ads for it everywhere I go.
They're tracking your every click by gathering data on your preferences
Right.
and using that information to create targeted ads that follow you around the internet.
It's both impressive and a little creepy.
It is. It raises some important ethical questions about privacy and manipulation.
Like, how much do we really want companies to know about our habits and preferences?
Yeah, and where do we draw the line between smart marketing and just taking advantage of people?
It's a tough question. So what can we do about it? I mean, how can we resist these marketing tactics?
Well, awareness is a good first step. Pay attention to the cues and rewards that trigger your spending habits. Ask yourself, do I really need this, or am I just being swayed by a clever ad?
That's a good point. Maybe we need to develop some new habits to counter these marketing tricks, like making a shopping list and sticking to it.
That's a great idea. Or how about creating a rule for yourself that you have to wait 24 hours before making any non-essential purchases?
Oh, I like that. Gives you time to cool off and really think.
Exactly. It's about taking control of our spending habits and making choices that align with our values and goals.
So it's not just about individual habits. It's about understanding how those habits are being influenced by external forces.
Absolutely. And speaking of external forces, I want to touch on another fascinating aspect of habits, their role in shaping social movements.
Ooh, yeah. We talked about how habits shape our individual lives, but I'm really curious to explore this idea of collective habits and how they can drive social change.
It's powerful stuff. Duhigg uses the example of the civil rights movement
Okay.
to illustrate how seemingly small individual habits can add up to create a force for change.
Okay.
He highlights the role of strong ties, weak ties, and the development of new habits.
So break that down for me.
Yeah.
What are strong ties and weak ties?
Strong ties are your close personal relationships, family, close friends.
Okay.
These are the people you trust, the people who share your values.
So in the context of the civil rights movement, Those strong ties within the Black community, they provided a foundation for organizing and mobilizing.
Exactly. People were more willing to take risks and participate in protests, knowing they had the support of their loved ones.
Makes sense. And what about weak ties?
Weak ties are your acquaintances, colleagues, people you might not know as well, but who are still part of your social network.
So how do those weak ties contribute to the movement?
They played a crucial role in spreading the message, reaching a wider audience.
Okay.
When people saw their friends, neighbors, coworkers participating in protests, it created a ripple effect, a sense of social pressure to join in.
Like it normalized the behavior, made it more acceptable.
Exactly. And then there's the third element, the development of new habits. Think about the Montgomery bus boycott.
Right. Sparked by Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her seat.
Exactly. The boycott required people to develop new habits, like carpooling, walking long distances.
So these new habits weren't just about personal convenience. They were acts of defiance, a way to disrupt the status quo.
Exactly. And those shared habits, they created a sense of collective identity, a feeling of unity and purpose.
It's amazing how something as simple as a habit can become a symbol of resistance.
It is. And that's what's so inspiring about the power of habits. They can be a force for good, not just in our individual lives, but in the world around us.
Absolutely. This has been such an incredible journey. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of how habits shape our lives, our choices, even our society.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you. And remember, the journey of habit change, it's a lifelong endeavor. Keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep striving to become the best version of yourself.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of habits. Until next time, keep diving deep.